Do you ever feel like you're hungry, but you're not really sure what you're actually hungry for? Come with me and we're gonna talk about the 4 different types of hunger to help you discern whether you're actually physically hungry or what else you can be actually reaching for. But before you do, don't forget to hit subscribe and the little bell to be notified when I release new videos to help you on your food and body healing journey every single week. You ready? Let's go. Okay, just had to do a little packing as I'm moving to New York City in the new year. So first things first, I want you to think about what hunger actually feels like for you. For most of us, we might say, oh, it feels like some sort of gurgling in my stomach, some sort of rumbling. But the truth is, that might not be the case for everyone. Hunger can be felt in many different ways. And when we typically say hunger, we're often referring to what we call physical hunger or primal hunger. Now, the 5 most commonly experienced symptoms of primal hunger or physical hunger, which indicates that you do likely need a top-of-bone fuel or food, are gonna be, yes, the mild gurgling and the kind of stomach upset for sure. It can also look like maybe irritability or low mood, hello hanger, it happens to the best of us. It could also look like difficulty concentrating. So maybe you're working or you're studying or you're doing something and you're feeling like you can't really focus anymore. You might be hungry. And then of course you might have experienced like a full body kind of just low energy. Now some experts say that there are up to 8 different types of hunger, but for the sake of simplicity and what we actually really need to know is that there are 4 umbrella terms. The first one, you guessed it, is physical hunger. So we've already talked about that. You can experience those typical symptoms that are quite physical in nature, and they're just really symptoms that your body uses to communicate to you that, hello, it's time to eat. Now the second one is actually taste hunger. This might look like perhaps walking down a street and walking past the bakery and seeing the beautiful pastries in the window and saying, that could be really nice. It could also look like at the end of a meal when you feel like you're totally physically full and you're like, I could not fit another bite into my mouth right now. And then comes along the dessert menu and you say, but there's always room for dessert. That could be taste hunger, right? We want a change in palate, a sensory experience. Now, the third type of hunger that is one that I often talk about with my clients the most is called practical hunger. Or in other words, what I say is anticipatory hunger. So you might anticipate and plan ahead if you notice that you're gonna have a really busy day ahead. Maybe you're in back-to-back meetings, maybe you're running errands from one place to another and you're not sure when is the next time you're going to have food available to you. But you also wanna be responsible and respect your body, and you wanna make sure you're nourishing adequately. So this is what we call practical hunger. So perhaps we might eat a larger breakfast in anticipation of back-to-back meetings. Perhaps we might actually eat in advance of an event, even if we're not hungry just yet, because we probably will likely get hungry 3 hours in, right? So anticipating your hunger is still part of eating intuitively and nourishing your body in a really healthy and balanced way. And the 4th type of hunger is what we can call emotional hunger or heart hunger. Perhaps we're eating to quench a specific emotion. Maybe it's anger, maybe it's stress, boredom, sadness, whatever it might be. And it's important to note that eating is a really emotional thing in the first place, right? If we think about our newborn selves, you might not remember, but just imagine a newborn baby. They're often, basically they eat, they sleep, they poop, and they cry, and then the cycle repeats, right? And ultimately, when they're crying, they obviously have a need that needs to be met. And what does mother do? Pulls, takes baby, puts to the breast. And the nourishment and the connection that is associated with nourishment is what then quells that emotional response. So eating is comforting in nature. It's quite innate because eating is an important thing for us to survive. The problem arises when eating emotionally is the go-to coping strategy, where perhaps we don't have any other coping mechanisms when we are feeling uncomfortable, whatever emotion might arise. And so we kind of just go to food, right? It's almost like a autopilot, and we don't really think much about it. So food can in fact be used to soothe emotions, and it can be healthy to a certain extent. However, if it really starts being the go-to and it really starts getting into the way of your quality of life and adds more stress into your day than anything, then maybe it would be time to start exploring other coping strategies and then, give it a little trial and error to see what else might help quell those emotions. Now you might be asking, okay, Ari, cool. So I know the main types of hunger, but how do I actually discern which one I'm actually feeling? Good question. This brings up one of my favorite topics, which is embodiment. Woo! Really coming back to the body and connecting to the felt sense of the body. Neuroscientists actually call this interoceptive awareness. So interoceptive awareness is the felt sense of the internal system, right? Like our visceral organs. It's really a body to brain axis of sensation, as neuroscientists call it. And really it's, for example, being able to really sense your heart rate, your heartbeat, maybe your breathing rate, tuning into the digestive system and what's, sensations in terms of symptoms of, gastric discomfort. So really having an awareness of what's going on inside, which is different from exteroception, which is being able to have a perceived sensation of the outside world when you touch and interact with it, or proprioception, which is having an indication of how you relate in space and time. Right? So it's really going on the inside. Now, a few things might actually get in the way of sensing internally what's going on. And so that might impact our ability to tune into our hunger and fullness as well. And things that might come up for us might be, for example, dieting, right? Diets have for so long told us that we cannot trust our body. Rather, we must use external rules to dictate exactly what we're eating. So that means we lose trust with our body and we no longer listen to it, right? And eventually, if you stop listening to, for example, a friend, they're gonna give up and say like, well, you're not gonna listen to me anyway. So, it kind of numbs out. And so that dampens our capacity to actually listen and tune inward. Another reason might be, for example, if we've lived through some really awful, atrocious experiences in this body that you're in. Maybe it's a form of trauma. And maybe it's even bullying and being told that your body isn't good enough, or at least being conditioned to believe it is, because it absolutely is. And so that might mean that we kind of have this disconnect from the body because it's not a really safe place, or we haven't felt safe in this particular body for quite some time. And so naturally we have to start rebuilding that trust, rekindling a little relationship with this body so that we can actually increase our interoceptive awareness and increase our capacity to then tune into our hunger, trust it, and use that as our guide in terms of when and how much and when we stop eating. Another factor that might get in the way is, for example, chaos, right? You're having a really stressful day, you're in meetings, you have errands, you're kind of going shopping, you're doing things for the kids, for your family member, your parents, whatever it is, you're everywhere outside of you but inside, right? And so we might have a long to-do list that we're kind of trying to check off, and that's very much being externally referenced. So we're not spending as much time in our physical body that we might need to check in with ourselves and ask ourselves, what do we need? Am I actually hungry right now, right? And so that might be something that we start considering is, whilst we're in a chaotic environment, maybe it's time to kind of just insert pauses throughout the day. Maybe we need a little alarms or bells and whistles to kind of just remind us, hey, are you hungry? Or take a deep breath, take a little pause right now and check in with yourself. Now, a notorious other factor that might influence and dampen our interoceptive awareness is skipping meals, i.e. breakfast is one of the most notoriously skipped meals. And what ends up happening is that actually just really exacerbates that hunger silence cycle. So by introducing meals at, frequent enough times, you're building that rhythm of the body. So just like we have a circadian rhythm that really dictates our sleep and wake cycles, that really allows us to function and actually regulates our hormone production in our brain and body, the same thing happens when we eat at regular times. So it's not to say you have to be militant about your eating schedule, but rather having plus minus roughly the same time a day that you're gonna be eating, plus minus an hour. And that really helps the body get into a cycle in terms of producing hunger and fullness hormones at regular times. And that helps build a healthy hunger fullness cycle, which then allows you to tune into that interoceptive awareness and start building trust with it. So now let's say that you've built up your interoceptive awareness and you are so tuned in, you're embodied, you're in your body, you're building that sense of trust. Remember, it is a practice. Two main questions I invite you to ask yourself to start discerning the type of hunger you're feeling are, first, what am I actually feeling right now? Is it a physical sensation, including maybe irritability, maybe you're feeling sluggish, dizzy, maybe you feel like an emptiness or a stomach ache, maybe you feel like you're shaky, or maybe it's time to eat? Or could it be an emotion, right? Start by labeling that emotion. How are you actually feeling? What tells you you're feeling that? Next, I invite you to ask yourself, what is it that I need? So if it is a felt sense and you know you're physically hungry, then yeah, what is it that you feel you want to have to nourish yourself? Or if it's an actual emotion, what is it that you actually need to self-soothe? Now, I've created a hunger body scan just for you so you can really start discerning between physical hunger and emotional hunger. So check out the link here or in the description below, and you'll be able to access my free guide to help you really start understanding what these sensations feel like in your body. Now, as always, if you thought this video was helpful, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the little bell to be notified when I release new videos to help you on your food and body healing journey every single week. See you soon.